Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. And I may say it's an absolute privilege to be able to speak to this lady coming in from San Francisco. And we're just talking before we press record. It's probably the first episode in over 900 that I've recorded where the guest is coming in and I talk about this being a fireside chat. And Claire, you are the first person who has literally had a fireplace right behind you. And it's not a pretend thing. This is your actual room you're coming in from. So Claire Giovino, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I like to be prepared and it's very warm and cozy in here. So happy to set the mood.
And you're also saying that the Louis the cat loves to lie in front of it as well. So you use that quite often because that's your working space, being a person that works a lot from home. So that's really cool. And it's a nice fireplace setup as well. It's very ornate.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an old Victorian house, so it's kept all that character, all the details.
Sensational. So, Claire, you're coming in from San Francisco. You're the co-founder and CEO at inboxdone.com. We're going to talk a lot about productivity, designing your perfect day, protecting deep work, and I guess time management versus energy management, which we'll get to, which is something I think that a lot of sales leaders need to get better at, building the capability around. Before we jump into all those fantastic topics, a little bit about your background. Where did it all start for you? And what sort of led you down this path of running this particular business?
Yeah, I started in academia. I was an adjunct professor of writing and English, and I had these long commutes to and from the university. And so on those commutes, I was listening to every entrepreneurial podcast. This was right when Tim Ferriss came out with 4 Hour Work Week, and just fascinated by the idea of not having to exchange your time for money. And so I started pitching myself to all of these blog writers and podcast hosts that I was listening to, first as a writer. So I did some ghostwriting, but then it just very organically expanded. I just started saying yes to everything and any client I could get. And one of these clients was one of the podcasts I listened to. Yaro Starik had the podcast Entrepreneur's Journey. And I came in and revamped all his operations and his systems for his online business. And we got it into this amazing place where the entire business had been delegated except for his inbox. So it was this sticking point of the more successful he got, the more emails he got, the more messages he got, and it was the one area he couldn't get out of. So I created a system in there to get him free, set him free, got him down to checking it only once a month, and then eventually not at all. And so then we rolled out the beta phase, rolled it out to some of his friends in his network. They loved it, and that very organically grew into what it is today. And next year will be 10 years. And it's just been really a joy to see other entrepreneurs experience true freedom through, the assistants that we match them with, who then take over their inbox, which is the hub and heart of most businesses. But branching out from their calendar, all the social media inboxes, and all the admin related to keeping the business running smoothly without the owner, or whatever your role might be, having to be
Yeah.
present.
Wow. So he literally, in this particular case, can simply focus on growing his business and I guess fine tuning and the areas that he adds value to his client base rather than getting caught up in a lot of I guess, the admin stuff and maybe the pre-sales and post-sales and credit and whatever else comes in terms of the business that you're running that enables him to double down on his zone of genius.
For Yaros as a starting point, and now the hundreds of clients that we have. Exactly. And we've heard it, the working on your business instead of in your business. So that's
Yeah.
really what it is getting you out of the in. And then every task being a decision. And it starts with those micro tasks of where does this email go, being a very tiny little decision, all the way up to can you hire someone to take your sales calls, which,
Yeah.
people definitely can.
So just on that, I love to ask the question, how hard is it, and particularly for him, but other entrepreneurs and business people that you've been working with over the last 10 years, how hard is it to let go? Where they think, well, I am the front of the business. I am the business. And if I outsource this and give somebody else or a machine, for example, the opportunity to do this, then I'm going to lose touch with my own business. How hard has that been as a hurdle and an obstacle?
So common. Almost everyone that we work with has that to an extent. And it makes sense. It's your business is your baby. You've poured yourself into it. It's a very scary thing to hand over the reins. So we just match the pace of, whatever the comfort level is of the client. But it's a bit of a fallacy because you feel that no one else can do what you can do. And what's true is that oftentimes they can, if not better. And oftentimes a fresh set of eyes reveals gaps that
Yeah.
you might not see because you've been steeped in it for so long.
Mm.
And no one can replace the multiple years of nuanced knowledge that you have about your business. When I was growing this, I had to wear every single hat in the company to start before I delegated all of the hats. But you can get very close to cloning yourself, and that comes through the process of extracting all of that knowledge that lives in your head and a lot of the stuff you do on autopilot and getting it onto the page so that you have actual resources and SOPs and databases with all of this knowledge. So even if you were to stop working with Inbox Done, for example, you still have that there and you can
Yeah.
delegate again as needed.
And the name Inbox Done, because you mentioned before that you delegated or you outsourced pretty much everything for this particular entrepreneur other than the inbox. And is that where the name came?
Yes, exactly.
Because you probably do more than just outsourcing or delegating inbox. So let's talk about that because there'll be a lot of people listening to this who maybe not necessarily entrepreneurs, but they might work in an entrepreneurial organization or an organization where there's multiple different roles and a quite a matrixed organization. And they'll have people like team assistants or personal assistants or executive assistants, which they think, well, I'm outsourcing it to my EA because my EA does all my emails. I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. It's a bit of a flex, really. And the reason we started with the inbox is because we found, and I found that it was the last area that a lot of successful people will let go of.
Yeah.
And there's some examples where just people really enjoy it. They just want to be the one who answers their emails. But I find that's very rare. A lot more of the times it's fear-based, where they just are nervous to hand that over. So yeah, it's a bit of a flex to have an assistant, and I've heard of people faking it too, until they're able to afford the assistant, they just fake that they have one, and it creates this really nice buffer of, I'm going to hand you over to so and so, and he'll do the negotiating with you when it's still just them. But it's true freedom to have built that trust and know that while you're sleeping or while you're spending time with your family, your assistants are stepping in either as you or as themselves, whatever your preference is, to handle things on your behalf.
Because I was going to ask you, Claire, there's a lot of people, say, in off country, offshore from the US and certainly from Australia that operate virtual assistant type services. So how does what you do, I guess, differ or interlock with VAs? Because I'm thinking that perhaps the service that you offer and the methodology that you use is quite cost effective for entrepreneurs and businesses where they don't have to necessarily invest in the full person, but it's more about the function. How does that compare with what you do?
Yeah, it's becoming a lot more common now too, the fractional hiring versus the full time. So we are a virtual assistant agency, and where we differentiate is starting in the inbox and all of the context that we can learn in there about your role, you as a person, and your business, and then branching out from there. We also do two assistants per client, and what this does is completely remove any lapse of service if they're sick or need vacation time or have an emergency or for whatever reason need to step off. There's unlimited replacements
Mm.
there. So, yes, we can take over all of these admin areas of your business and essentially run your life to the extent that you want us to. But also, we're eliminating hiring, which is kind of the hidden pain point in all of this. So, you don't have to go find this unicorn assistant. We'll provide that for you. We have this proprietary matching process, multi-step, that really we're matching not just industry, time zone, skill set, but personality to
Yeah,
make it a
okay.
really long-term match.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I did want to talk about how we do this, and certainly for executives and sales leaders in particular that are probably feeling that they're overwhelmed with the amount of information that comes at them every single day, the amount of responsibility they have each and every day. But before I do that, the question that popped into my head is, and I think you might have kind of mentioned this a little bit, the fear of letting go. And that is the trust that you might have in a person that you either delegate everything to them so they'll either act as themselves, as the assistant, or they act as you, which a lot of executive assistants do today. So they'll look at their executive director's mailbox and they'll answer as they would. How hard has it been for your clients to be able to let go, where literally the IP sits in their head, and giving the opportunity to a person who's outsourced to take care of certain tasks to then have those conversations, probably in writing, obviously, because you wouldn't be doing it verbally, with clients, and having the trust that those people will be able to have the same level of conversation with that client as if it was the owner or the founder or the chief executive officer. How hard's that been? Because I can think that there'll be certain things where the founder would have to get involved, such as maybe negotiations and contracts and stuff like that. So is it really ring fenced in terms of specific roles so that it's not obvious that this is not the person who is the actual founder or the CEO?
Yes. And so we figure out exactly where the founder or the CEO would step in and on what. And as the assistants learn more and take over more, those things can become fewer and fewer, but you just get to decide. We guide each client through the process. Where do you want to stay involved, which is the ultimate goal, which goes to our topic coming up of if you were to design your perfect day, what would you be doing each day?
Yeah.
Now, let's try to get your day to the point where you are doing just those things where you have the highest impact and the highest ROI so that we
Mm.
can take care of everything else. But the fear of letting go, I had it too. It's completely understandable. There's a couple things at play where also a lot of us just like to be the people with the answers and like to swoop in and help and have the solutions and solve those problems so there's a bit of that I had to let go of, knowing how capable my assistants were, and again often better than me for what they can see that I might miss, because they don't have all that bias that I have of it being my business. But we're only hiring people and only ever bringing people in who are going to represent you at the highest possible level. So they're not
Yeah.
just protecting your time, they're protecting your reputation.
And that's why you mentioned before you've got a system or a profile set that you use that not only matches the capability, but also, I guess, the personality style of the person, to make sure that you're getting the right person that can represent you, but also the organization in the ethical way, which is really important.
Exactly. And communication and tone. Do you like really direct and to the point? Do you like more friendly? Is it more professional? We can match tone and brand and all of that. So it feels like a true representation of you. So you're not feeling like you have to compromise.
Yeah, love that. So as a business that's been running for 10 years, what's been the theme across those 10 years in relation to, I guess, the trigger point for either an entrepreneur or a really busy executive to say, hey, I'm not maximizing the return on my effort. I'm not getting the response or the return that I'm looking for. Is there a typical common trigger where people start to look at this sort of service in terms of outsourcing and then going through the process of identifying the key criteria by which we allocate tasks, but also get the right person? Is there one single theme that sort of flows through in your experience over the last 10 years?
Yes, it's there's a logistical answer and a psychological answer. Logistically, when your business hits a certain point where you can actually start to buy back some of your time is a tipping point for if I look at what I'm earning in a year, capable of earning in a year, is this task of like answering an email actually worth my time, and the value of my time? I look, oh, I think I just froze for a second. All
You're
good on your
back.
end?
You're back. You're back.
Um, so just from a budget standpoint, once your business gets to a certain point and you're ready to buy back your time. And then psychologically, I think a lot of our clients get to the point of burnout where they're just come in with their hands up, like, okay, I surrender, I'm ready, because I'm sick of it all being on me. I'm sick of being the bottleneck for every decision and experiencing a lot of decision fatigue. And especially for our solopreneurs, it's a way to get an overnight team as well
Mm.
because we're bringing in two assistants. So a lot of times it can go from being only you to a really amazing team that you decide how often you want to communicate with. Is it every day, multiple times a day, once a week? We have some clients who say they talk to their assistants more than family members. But it's your preference how far you want to take it.
And particularly if you're an organization or a business that has global reach and you have global customers, then having that 24 by 7 coverage will be very important so that, as you say, when you're sleeping, your business is still ticking over and things are taken care of. People have to be conscious though that if you are representing the owner of the business or the CEO, the CEO is not working 24 by 7. So how much of this is, I guess, transparency where you let people know that, hey, it's going to come from my inbox, but it won't necessarily be me. Is there an ethical thing you've got to sort of cover off in that respect?
Well, you get to decide if you want your assistants to respond as you or as themselves. That's a
Yeah.
personal choice. And then if it is as the assistant, there's a bit of a transition period where, for lack of a better word, you're training your customers or your contacts. Like, this is going to help me serve you better.
Yeah.
By bringing these assistants, I can now do X, Y, and Z for you better. But really, we see customers adapt so quickly, but they will take as much as you give. So if you're an owner or a CEO who's your clients and your customers are used to hearing back from you immediately, then of course that's the expectation. So maybe it's then gently course correcting to you'll hear back from us within 24 hours or whatever it feels is most sustainable. So there's a bit of a transitional period for that training, which we've also had our assistants do with people in their personal lives, like friends
Mm.
and family, and it's just finding, what's that turnaround time that you would most like to see happen.
So hang on, you're saying there are people that outsource all their personal stuff as well, so their assistants talking with their with their brother or their
Yep,
mother.
yep, yep, yep. You'd be surprised.
Hang on, imagine me doing that with my mother. She'd be I'd have to be reading the emails to make sure I understood what's being spoken about.
They get just drafted for you, and then yep, send.
Oh my goodness, my goodness. All right, so let's talk about. There'll be people listening to this who are saying, "Hey, this is fantastic. I love the concept. I love to be able to buy back some of my time." Let's talk about this concept of designing the perfect day. And I love the concept of this. Many years ago, I did a coaching diploma, and part of that was a lot of the NLP training, and one of my mentors was talking about what would be your ideal role. And within that, what would be your ideal average day? So taking that as a concept, we started to think about what you'd be doing and who you'd be liaising with and how much time you'd be working, all that sort of stuff. From your perspective in working with either an executive or a founder, what are some elements that people need to consider in relation to designing their perfect day?
Yeah. The big one is energy management. So there's a lot of focus on time management and time tracking, which is very valuable. Everyone should be at least like once a year do a 1 week time tracker to see where your time is actually going, the same way as you would track calories or do a budget. It reveals so much about where your priorities really are because the hours, the time doesn't lie. But then energy management is where you start for designing your day. So if you do wake up with lots of energy, that's something to pay attention to. So what tasks am I going to slot into my highest energy phase? Knowing that I might dip in the afternoon and knowing that I'm going to get diminishing returns if I try to do sales calls in the middle of the afternoon when I
Mm.
am at my lowest energy point. And of course, some of us just have to. I've many times just had to do something because it has to get done, even if my energy is not highest. But there's little tweaks that we can make to support this design your perfect day. And what I've found in working with clients around this topic is it usually only takes 3 to 5 things to create a perfect day. So if you
Okay.
actually write down what would have to happen in this day to call it incredible, for me, it's writing, reading, connecting with someone I love, being active in some way, and um, really good food. Like that makes an amazing day for me. And so it's easier to achieve than you think. Often the gap between where you are now and where you'd like to be isn't as far. And then once you get really clear on that, you then bring in, okay, what needs to be automated then, what needs to be delegated, and what needs to be eliminated. Because often we don't have to do all of the things. We can, with those three criteria, really pare down a lot.
I love that. Um, Especially the energy management thing, and there's a lot of I do a lot of training and facilitation. And there's a lot of elements of productivity in that, and that is people think about time management, and it's not actually time management because you can't manage time because it just goes, right? So this it's a bit of a fallacy that you can manage time, but it's really the priorities within your time. But it's interesting how many people don't consider energy management, and I often give them a one-page sheet which has just got say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for example, and say, well, typically the business hours are expanding. It's no longer just 9 to 5. And I get them to think about just plot where is your energy levels at different times of the day. And I've never been able to understand how, for me, sometimes how people can go for a run at the middle of the day, or how they can go to the gym at the end of the day after working the entire day. But for some, that's where they're at their most energetic, and that's where they get the best bang for their buck, so to speak. It's interesting that a lot of people think about this concept of time management, but not energy management. Have you found that to be a similar case when you do this exercise with executives and entrepreneurs that they tend to focus on where is my time, and so I'll do a time audit, but they don't necessarily consider where am I at in terms of my energy levels at various times throughout the day. And has that been a bit of a an eye opener for them?
Absolutely. Many of them have never thought about it before at all. And it's exactly what you said. Where does the energy for you naturally ebb and flow? But then also, what tasks are energy producing versus energy draining? Most of us have heard of flow. What is the thing that you do where you just lose track of time and actually have time blindness because it's just so at the intersection of what you're good at and what you love. Those types of tasks ideally are producing a lot of energy, but then also factoring in, yes, the tasks in your business for the executives that you work with that are that intersection of what produces energy and what produces the highest ROI, knowing that also there are non-business tasks that you need to fill your day with to get imbued with more energy as well, like spending
Yeah.
time with family, activity, all those things.
So what do you say to the executives and the entrepreneurs that say to you, Claire, I simply don't have the time. I'd love to do all this. I would love to do this. I think that would be utopia, but you don't understand. I'm so busy, Claire. I simply don't have time.
I think nothing changes if you change nothing. And to get something new, you have to try something new. So if you're okay with your current day to day, and you feel it's sustainable, then keep doing it. There is a bit of a catch-22 for sure in that first month when you start to delegate to an assistant, like one of ours, where you do have to provide a bit more work up front, but you're getting for a lifelong payout, like a lifelong reward. And it usually is only a month of just being present, making sure they have what they need, being available to answer questions. And then it's just a life-changing switch. So yeah, most of them do feel that, but we also walk you through the process so it's as painless as possible too.
It's such an important concept because I know for a fact there are executives that I've worked with that almost protect their tasks, the projects, um, and they almost protect it with their life to say, well, if I give this to somebody, if I delegate this to another person, then I almost lose a part of my identity. So I understand the elements of the tasks and the projects to free up time to be more productive working on the business, not just in the business. But I'm curious to know for the executives that you've worked with and entrepreneurs, where does identity come into this? Because I know there'll be people that grab their identity from the work that they do, and for a lot of them, that keeps them in the minutiae of the detail every single day because they get some level of comfort and meaning from doing that. And it's either difficult to let go or they choose to not let go.
Yes. And if I love this question because almost everything comes down to identity. So you can go then to questions of what's my version of success or a successful person? What would they do? So is it that does your version of success look like someone who needs to be on their phone all the time answering emails?
Mm,
Often, when you're asking questions like this, you get to the root cause of identity and what you truly want that to be. There's definitely people who just love to work. I don't think you should delegate anything you actually get fulfillment from. Because if you delegate everything and just have all of these empty voids now in your day, that's not fulfilling. So we're looking at exactly what you're filling the time that you just bought back with. That's the ideal.
mm.
And that could actually wake up your identity in a new way or get you closer to the identity that you would actually like to be working from on a daily basis.
Yeah, because I mean, you said before, I think, and I may misquote you a little bit, but you said you love to read, you love to write, you love to connect, you love to do some physical exercise, and you love to connect with people who are nearest and dearest to you. So that's your, I guess, your pillars of an ideal perfect day. And anything outside of that, you're going to probably try to look for how do I outsource that? How do I get somebody else to do that? So it still gets done, but I can focus on what makes me happy. And so that's linked to your identity. I can certainly see there'll be people that might have certain things in a day that they want to do because they maybe they want to be an email responder, maybe they want to be the person who runs the sales calls, whatever, because that's their jam. But what we're saying is that this can be customized for each person, and the key part is you as an executive, you as a sales leader, you as an entrepreneur need to understand what makes for you the perfect day to enable you to be as fulfilled, but also deliver the outcomes you're looking for. Because it's not going to be the same thing for every person. So you're not going to come in, for example, and say, "Hey, Darren, this is the ideal perfect day. We need to get all this stuff off your plate so you can go and do the things you really love to do." And I say, "Well, hang on, Claire. What if I love to actually be the person front and center doing the sales calls?" Then you'll be saying, "Well, no, that's not the." So you've got to customize this, is what we're saying, yeah.
Exactly. And maybe you still want to be in your inbox every day. You just never want to write another email. You just want to be pressing send, 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 send. Or maybe you have a specific idea of what that relationship with your assistant looks like. So some of our clients want them to be hyper proactive and like, here's all the things that you can make the decision on, versus others really want to be presented with a brief of the day or a list of questions, and they go yes, no, Tuesday, 3 p.m., and they want to sign off. So you also get to design the container within which you work with your assistants too,
Yeah.
not only the tasks. But I'm curious what your 3 to 5 pillars are for your perfect day.
Mine,
Mhm.
uh, well, yeah, I've got to say, I have to say, spending time with my wife, right? Because it's been 31 years, so I have to say that. Not that she listens to this podcast. Spending time with obviously my dog Millie. That's a key thing. But it's podcasting, it's thinking, it's strategy, it's doing things on LinkedIn. I like connecting as well. I like speaking to people like you. So if I'm not doing that, I go a bit nuts. What I don't like to do is having to go through copious amounts of email, most of which are just absolute rubbish and spam. But it's there are certain things that I like to do. I need to do revenue generating exercises. Need to be able to talk to clients. Need to be able to add value. But I like being like facilitating. I like being able to have conversations like this. So when I do that, at the end of the day, it's fulfilling because I've made another connection, sprinkled little bit more of executive pixie dust out into the world, and it's been a good day.
Yeah. No, this definitely falls in as one of mine. This is a one of the five that will make this a really good day.
Awesome. So this all sounds brilliant. Um, can you talk a little bit about how this might work? This whole concept of outsourcing and buying back time and designing perfect day in an organization where you have lots of executives, where you might have an executive that wants to be focused on certain things, another executive or another person in the business has different things. So, in terms of things like clarity across teams, collaboration, are there other things we have to consider in relation to this sort of concept really working so that the machine of the business can continue to flow? Rather than it being, well, one executive's doing this, another executive's doing something different, and it's a little bit of a disconnect and mismatch.
Yeah. Part of our hiring process is looking for dot connectors who can communicate across departments for that exact reason. So again, with the inbox and that initial handover month, you're looking at who are the key contacts, who are all of these people, who are all of these relationships. And what often happens is one executive will learn about our service and try it out, and then expand the plan accordingly across different executives or different departments. But it's to the extent that you want to grow with your assistants. They can be that connector of dots for you. So you just sign off on where all of these messages are coming from within the organization as a whole. We can take on multiple inboxes, multiple teams, but usually we recommend starting really small, see if you like it, show that it does work, that trust can be built rapidly, and then expanding from there.
Do you have any, I don't want this to sound like a provocative question, but do you have any pushback on organizations, presupposing you'd be doing some work in companies with executives that probably do have a physical executive assistant
Mhm.
to some degree? Do you have any, because this is probably the sign of the times with, as you mentioned before, a lot of fractional work that's now coming to the surface. Are there any challenges in organizations where you have pushback, say, from a physical executive assistant, where they think perhaps their role is going to be either diminished or removed, and they not so much sabotage, but they make it a little bit more difficult to see the benefits of what you do?
We don't encounter that often. What is often our client will position it as is an assistant for the assistant, so they can do their
Okay.
job much better. Or for whatever, maybe it's not an executive assistant, but an ops person who has had their toe dipped in admin, where they might feel something similarly. It's, look, I'm bringing in this support for you to do your job better. And then because it is fractional, I mean, you can work with us full time and a lot do, but because it is a fractional hire, We have clients who will have an executive assistant, but then want to siphon off a specific inbox with just our people running it. Or they want to create that designation where they don't want the person that they're seeing and interacting with every day in this area. They want one of our assistants on that. So you just get to pick and choose where you place us. And then really the magic is, as you know, it's not just drafting and responding to emails. Obviously, that's where we start and you can stop right there and get a ton of value. But how many emails do you get coming in that are related to an additional task? Like this invoice needs to be paid, or go check Notion because someone commented on it, or updating your project management system, or doing a data report, something tax related. So your assistant can learn all of those tasks to then call that email done. It's
Mm.
not just like putting more in front of your plate, here's your to-do list for the day, which is often what email becomes for most of us, is this to-do list that builds up and we just chip away at it. They can actually learn the tasks that are attached to each of those emails with the platform. They're highly adaptable and learning multiple different platforms.
Because I can see that if an executive or an entrepreneur sits down and actually maps out their perfect day, not only will they get more time back in their diary to be more productive throughout the day, but there'll be a lot less requirement for them to sit on their laptop post the workday, which a lot of people do, and they go through the number of emails and they have lots of conversations, which just expands the workday like you wouldn't believe. But to be able to outsource that and get it done by somebody else who knows the system and can act like you is a massive productivity hack. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yep. So you decide exactly what those hours are where you're going to be present and on. Hmm.
And then part of that you've got to obviously you talk a lot about protecting deep work and that is going to be different for different people. So for some as an executive it might be strategy. What's the strategic direction for the next 3 months for this organization? I need to have some clear mind space so I can work on what that's going to look like, which means I need somebody who I can trust to take stuff away. And it's going to be different for different people, but the concept is really strong.
Well, and I'm sure you know this. One interruption of deep work and it takes 15-20 minutes to just to re-enter the deep work. And my favorite I learned recently is even just having your phone in your line of sight reduces your productivity by 15 to 20%. Not even using it or touching it or having sounds on, just it being in your peripherals. And so I guard my focus with my life. It's like the ultimate currency, is focus and attention in this climate. And so, again, with working with an assistant, you get this buffer and guardian of your time and your focus so you truly can enter those deep work phases.
So in other words, when you're in deep work, Claire, make sure your phone is in a different room.
I do, yeah.
Well, Mel Robbins talks about that. She talks about having her phone in a completely different room with the alarm loud enough that she can hear it, but not close enough that she can get access to it. For some, it'll be like separation anxiety because I know everybody's got their device literally attached to them everywhere they go.
It's like the addiction of the times. Yep. Yep. And it also do not disturb. I have it on during, like to your point, the hours I actually want to be working.
Yeah,
And I had to train, for lack of a better word, the people in my life a little bit, that I'm just unreachable during these hours. And now
yeah,
everyone is used to it.
yeah. Love that. Love that. So, any conversation about all this, it would be remiss of me not to ask you around this concept of artificial intelligence and AI and how this all plays out. Because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of companies out there pushing AI productivity tools, not necessarily actual people. Um, in the work that you do, how does AI either integrate or play a part in, or is it still separated from what you do? And the reason I'm asking that question is there'll be a lot of people listening to this who are in organizations where AI is part of what they do, whether it be responding to emails, putting together proposals, even doing strategy in terms of how to put the right words together based on this particular concept. Um, how do you see the evolution of AI and the integration of AI into work, into business, but also the work that you do at inboxdone.com?
At least for now, AI is still only as good as the human managing it. That could change in a couple of years. But even, for example, Claude, I'm having so much fun with Claude. And by the time this interview is over, Claude could be dead and the next new thing could be have replaced it. But what's so interesting is I'm like deep into Claude, seeing what its scope is and what's possible, and still needing to be so present with this agent where it needs me to prompt still, it needs me to train it, it needs me to course correct, it needs me to be very present, which is a different thing. Yes, I can set it aside and let it do its thing to an extent,
Mm,
but it's a very different thing than training up a human who can then go and action all of these things, knowing that they have their knowledge base, and I just get to go on with my life. And I'm not tied to the computer or the phone that Claude is working from. And so we've fully embraced it. So we ask in our hiring process, how have you used AI in the past? How would you use it with a client? We give them hypothetical situations and what does that look like? Your experience with it thus far, and we're really the best of both worlds because if you don't want to learn all of these different options coming out, we can implement for you and AI optimize your business. So just like we've always hired assistants who are highly adaptable, like we talked about before, in learning all your tech stack that runs your
mm,
business, they're just as much going to do the same with these AI platforms in building out your tech stacks and offering suggestions. And I noticed this, I think this would be a great replacement to what we're doing here. For example, we had an assistant who was still manually going through applications that were coming into the inbox, knowing that Claude could easily do this and scan for
mm.
keywords and what needs to be found in those applications. And so looking at the AI like an assistant to your assistants, which we talked about earlier, and then doing it for the client so that they don't have to, so that you get to be as interested as you want to and dabble in AI as much as is of interest to you,
Yeah.
knowing that it's being taken care of by your team. So yeah, we've AI optimized like several businesses now, several of our clients' businesses. It's just making our assistants perform better because then the like lowest tier, they're freed up then to do higher strategy, make bigger decisions for potentially bigger stakes depending on the trust that's been built in that client relationship. And it's only been a positive.
Wow. Love it. Love it. So it's here to stay, and we're going to embrace it, and we're gonna move forward. And we are not necessarily going to be replaced by the Elon Musk cyborg robots yet, but they may actually help us become a bit more effective. Hey, Claire, I've loved this conversation. For people listening to this that perhaps are thinking, well, I've never really thought about. I know the concept of virtual assistants. I know I can use Claude, I can use ChatGPT to make myself more effective. But if they've never really thought about taking the next step, what for people listening to this, and it's not necessarily, this is not, I'm not going to plug you necessarily. Hey, go and give all your business to. Well, that'd be great for you. So I'm going to give people the opportunity to do that, of course. But um, is there some tips or some strategies or some suggestions that people listening to this who perhaps have not gone down this path yet could at least start thinking about, even getting clear on their time audit for the last 2 weeks, or looking at their perfect day and their energy levels and so forth? Is there specific things that you would suggest people can do if they're starting from zero or behind zero to at least start thinking about some of this stuff that may then end up integrating and working with an organization like yourself?
So many. Exactly what you just listed. The time tracker, even just a week of that reveals a lot. You can get free apps that track your hours where you just clock in and clock out, especially if you have multiple businesses, which many of
Yeah.
our clients do, that can be very helpful. One thing that's helped me in this day design pursuit is having themed days. So specific days, I'll work on specific projects or businesses. Your energy audit for sure, asking the question of, is this an energy drain or infusion? And then what's the balance between this being high ROI versus high energy, right? There are those tasks that are low energy but high ROI. So you can delegate those, but you have to work up to it a little bit first. If
Yeah.
nothing else, start by delegating the low energy and the low ROI. So you can hand that off and go to where you do produce high ROI in your life, in your business. And then asking the question just as you work, am I the person who should be doing this? Really answers a lot of getting started with delegation and designing your perfect day. You can do a free call with us. I think very similar to you, Darren. We're so not pushy on our discovery calls. It's very much a just ask whatever questions you have at inboxdone.com. And then inboxdone.com/playbook is if you just want to do it yourself. There's 25 steps for onboarding your own assistant and training them up and doing it all if you want to do it on your own. It's a great book.
Love it, love it. And you've already preempted, Claire, the next question I was going to ask you, which is how do people connect with you? Which is you just given the website. Where else can they do it? Can they go? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn, for example, as well?
Yeah. Uh, LinkedIn is just linkedin.com and my first and last name,
Yeah,
Claire Giovino. Inbox Done is there, of course, as well. But Claire at inboxdone.com, I have my assistant, but they pass me the emails that I want to read and write and the people I want to connect with. So you can always email me as well.
nice, awesome, awesome. I'll put those in the show notes, and I'll certainly encourage people to reach out, but certainly take on board some of the stuff we've spoken about today and improve their productivity. And I love what you said before, and I'm just trying to think. There was a you know how you have sometimes. I'm not sure whether you do this, but I do it all the time, especially in front of people. I have a brain fart, and the brain fart is you had something really, really good to say, then you've forgotten what it was.
And as soon as we say goodbye, you'll remember it.
Maybe it's not meant to be said. Okay, I won't worry about that because time is of the essence. Um, if there was one thing to leave people with, where in the earlier phase of 2026. They've got a lot of information coming at them. There's still a lot of pressure. There's a lot of external things that are happening macroeconomically. Cost of living is set all over the place, which means we've got to be more effective. We've got to be better purveyors of our time and protectors of our time and priorities. Is there one lasting message that you'd like to leave people with as we wrap this up?
Yes. Annie Dillard has a beautiful quote: how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And when we're in a climate where so much does feel out of our control, I don't think we were ever supposed to hold the world's events in the palm of our hand and our phones. That's a very heavy psychological toll to carry with us on a daily basis. Look at what is in your locus of control. And really chunking it down into days allows you to look at what actually do I have control over? What are the little tweaks that I can make that yield such dividends? Because if you look at any person you admire, any business you admire, anywhere you'd like to be, they just got there from an accumulation of many, many days doing the same couple of things over and over.
I love that. And if you do focus on the stuff you've got control, there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens outside of your control. And it's not to say you can't or won't be worried about it or concerned about it, but you've got to then focus on, well, what can I do in response to that? And that's the most important thing. And I did remember what it was, and that was, and you said it. It's within that context. Is what I'm doing today, is it going to have the best result for what I've got to try and achieve? And is this something I should be doing myself? So, as a leader, I say this all the time. When you've got a task in front of you, the first question I ask is this the best use of my time? And if it is, by all means, do it. If it's not, then you go look at somebody else to do it for you. So, I love that. Great finish to a great podcast. Claire, hey, thank you. Thank you for coming in and spending some time on your Monday afternoon. It's been a great conversation, and I wish you all the best with the continued success of inboxdone.com. Thanks for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it, but also if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.